We had so many signups for this lunch and learn. I was blown away. This is the most I've gotten yet. It was like over 50. Um, and it happened very, very quickly. So obviously, this is a very, very popular topic. While we're waiting for everyone to join, do you guys want to go through and just do like a brief, like, minute or less introduction of yourself?
Sure. So my name is Jenny. I am a 3D apparel technical designer and product developer. I've been freelancing for about 10 months, not quite a year. And I've been using CLO for about 6 of those months. So it's still fairly new for me, but I am having a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. Jade?
Hi, I'm Jade, and I started learning code maybe over 2 years ago. And I was like a pattern cutter for almost 20 years. And I just adopt like Close 3D to kind of like build into my workflow and also kind of just, exploring all the amazing features in the program to kind of add on to my service as a freelancer. Yeah.
Awesome. Ellie?
Hi, I'm Ellie. I go by Ellie. My name's Elyannie, but I go by Ellie for short. And I've been pattern making for about 13 years. And I've been doing 3D pattern making for about 8. I started with Obutux and then transitioned to Flow 3D. I work as a freelancer. Started freelancing in 2017, and it's about it. I do a lot of like technical design as well, like Adobe Illustrator, but Flow 3D makes a big portion of the work that I do.
Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. There was so many questions that came in. So we'll just start getting into it. Let's start with offering or what the benefits of CLO are. Let's do that. So one of the questions that came in was, which steps in the design process can be streamlined or skipped by using CLO?
So I haven't answered this. I just want to say that 3D, I don't think 3D is replacing samples at all. There's still very much a need for samples, but it does streamline the sample process by reducing the amount that you need to finalize fit and design. I still think physical samples are needed because to get feedback from live models is so valuable, plus wear testing and everything. But reducing samples is definitely a great way to streamline the process.
I should have said this before. By the way, everyone, I'm Courtney. I'm hosting. I forgot to do that part. I learned CLO at one of my previous jobs. I'm not currently using it, but I'm familiar enough with it that I can also kind of like, I guess, to some point knowledgeably talk about my experience. And I would agree with Jenny a lot. Like, that was one of the things I think to immediately see a reduction in timing and sampling, just because we could see the concept very clearly on a body and make changes to, what is the word I'm looking for? Like ratios and things like that. If, the skirt needs to be longer or bigger or whatever, sleeves, things like that. Jade, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think I made some note basically to streamline. I think like when it comes to design process, when it comes to a lot of edit, like such as silhouette, details, colorways, I think like you can streamline that part of the process a lot using CLO. And I think you can also, for skipping like steps like using CLO, is like you definitely can skip the first calico sample, fit sample, to get the general idea. You can already see that in 3D. Like, unlike in the past, we always still have to cut out like a sample just to see if the shape is right before even, placing all the details and things like that, which you can definitely kind of see in CLO as well. And I guess also you can skip like doing all the construction drawings for your tech pack, because it's a 3D basically sample. You can take screenshot from certain angle to see how the construction works and easily communicate with the client or the designer if that's the finishing they kind of like vision. And also I think like down the line, if you use CLO 3D with CLO set, you can even skip like making a separate tech pack actually, because like that tech pack can be generated from all the data from the 3D asset you're building in CLO. And then that tech pack basically is like, you can just keep like live updating it when you change your pattern, when you change the trim, when you change just as many details as you could, kind of like that logging in the CLO software. So I feel like, yeah, there's just many ways you can kind of keep like building on top to enhance your workflow and be more efficient for the long run.
Absolutely. Okay, so then the second question in this kind of topic was, what has the impact of using CLO been in your freelance career? And I want to hear from all three of you on this, but also like, there was another question that was kind of tag teaming with this, that was like, how did you shift from not being in CLO to being in CLO? So can you each kind of answer that? How you move, what you did before CLO, how you shifted into CLO, and then what has been the impact of adding that to your offering?
So I started freelancing just doing sample comments and fit comments for my clients. And I kind of, because that's what their real need was at that moment, I didn't push CLO, even though I had that skill set. So I kind of went through this process with them, doing the sample comments and the fit comments, seeing how they worked, and then at the end of like the overflow of work that they needed help with, I kind of reminded them that, hey, I also do CLO, and if you would like, I can do a trial project with you. I did end up upping my rate for CLO, but I offered it at my current rate for the trial project to kind of get them interested in it. And I ended up doing an actual whole presentation for them. They gave me a pattern and I did some fit corrections on it. So I showed them the before and the after, and then how you can use it to mock up different design options to decide what you want to do. And then just kind of gave them a little view of what it looks like in CLO and like things that you can do. And it got them so excited about it. And now I do almost exclusively CLO work with them. So the impact for me is, one, I was able to charge a higher rate just because we transitioned into CLO. And two, I feel like I'm getting a better understanding, because I'm not a pattern maker. I'm a technical designer. I know how patterns work and how to manipulate them, but I'm learning a lot more about what pattern modifications, how it affects the pattern or the garment in real time, because I can see it. And that's really cool.
That's awesome, Jenny. I love how you kind of presented to them like, this is exactly how this would benefit you, and like showed them as you went, and then got them on board. Mm-hmm. Jade, how about you?
I had a background like I draft pattern like just on papers. Like even I did learn Gerber system back in 2009, but it's just not many companies have that software. So I kind of just go back to like manual pattern drafting for different brands, like, because in London you have a lot like small, medium brands, but they still kind of very old school. They not using any like CAD software. They in their studio they still want everything in cards or paper. basically. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for many years. Even I already start learning some CAD, but then I feel like yeah, stepping into CLO is a whole different thing because this software is so accessible for brands to just adopt and then actually see how they can implement just part of the process into their day-to-day, and then, or even just hire a freelancer to help them to use the software to kind of enhance their process. Yeah, and then I feel personally it really reignites my passion for fashion and also garment construction, because before this I feel I'm just creating too much waste of paper, samples and everything, and I kind of just don't feel too good about that and a little bit tired of what I'm doing. But then the impact on me is like now I feel I have so much creative like freedom without feeling guilty of like I want to kind of see variation of design, or I want to try out variation of like pattern draft techniques. I can even just do that, like, but if in physical, like, I draft wrong pattern in paper, that would take so much longer to even explore different techniques and see the result, because then you gotta make each sample to see. But in CLO, you can actually already see the 3D kind of like fit and everything. So I guess, overlap with Jenny is I feel that even kind of boosts my knowledge on pattern drafting and also editing. Like, just like to play with different shape and silhouette. And I feel that actually even kind of like gave me more, even just like enhance my own learning on my pattern cutting skill, which I probably wouldn't be able to have time, or actually is less enjoyable to do that when you do everything on paper, because there's so much repetitive thing when it comes to pattern drafting. So this, definitely made me feel like exciting again, like working in fashion and kind of like be part of like garment construction process.
I love that. I agree. I do not have any background in pattern making or anything, but I understand how construction works. I understand how patterns work. I may not be an expert at like creating them or anything, but I know enough that I can use CLO and I can help, adjust patterns and kind of see how it affects fit. And that is huge to be able to kind of marry that knowledge and see how it affects the 3D rendering of the form and the garment. Yeah. And you're right, it's super fun to be able to quickly make those little changes and see the result.
Yeah, totally. And I think like a lot of pattern, many brands, they probably have their own blog. And if you work with them, if they're not working digitally, you probably need to retrace that pattern every single time onto paper before you can start manipulate or kind of draft the new pattern for their new season. But then when it comes to CLO, like you have that block in there, everything. Those kind of copying process, you don't need to do that anymore, or it's like 1 or 2 click process. Then you can really focus the time and energy on actually kind of like working on the style, the shape, the line. Yeah, so just literally more fun.
How about you, Ellie?
So before CLO, I was working in Optitex, like I mentioned before. I think I mentioned before anyways. So I was working in-house in a factory as a pattern maker assistant / pattern grader and many other roles. And that was a really fun job, but I had to move eventually and they wanted to keep me on board. So, I was extremely lucky to have the opportunity to have access to Optitex as well as freelance with that software through that contract that I had. So once that time came to end that contract, I was kind of in a pickle because I couldn't afford to purchase Optitex because it's a very expensive software. And I was trying to find out what would be the right solution. So CLO 3D for me was that solution to help me to be able to do this service as a freelancer. So I feel like that's really played a huge role in my freelancing career, as a pattern maker. Not only that, but it's just great. You could do it remote with the 3D samples. That's kind of the biggest feature, and the affordability of it was just definitely the reason for me, and I think most freelancers, because we're all like bootstrapping, I think, especially in the beginning, and it's hard to like consider spending all that money on something that's just going to be basically software, and you're not even sure if it's viable at this stage. So yeah, that was just my take on it as far as how CLO has impacted my like freelancing career.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm not currently in it. And I think I've talked to each one of you about this a little bit, but I did learn it, but I'm not ready to start paying for it yet because I'm still kind of building my freelance, client list, and I don't want to incur any more expenses. So the OptiText,
Right.
like, I get that. Nobody wants to just drop a bunch of money on something like, especially when you don't know if you're going to be able to make money off of it yet.
Yeah.
Can I get a quick poll in the chat? Like, does everybody here, I guess, drop a note in the chat if you've like never seen CLO, like, never seen a demo, never seen pictures, don't know how it works, don't know what it is. I just want to know, like, if we're talking about anything here that people have like no idea what CLO looks like. So maybe at some point we can share a screen if one of you, if any of you are willing to bring it up. But we don't have to do that right now. I was just kind of curious. Let's talk about learning CLO and how you guys started to do that. So at what point did you know, based on your knowledge of like your learning of the software, did you decide or know that you were ready to take on clients?
I feel like this is different for everybody. I took the FIT courses. There's a beginner and an advanced course, and that ended up being about 6 months. And after that, I did feel very comfortable working in CLO, although it did not focus on some things that I do use it for now. So I definitely played around with it a lot after those courses ended to kind of get my portfolio up on my website. And I learned a lot from just putting my portfolio together. And while I was putting my portfolio together, I was working with one of my clients doing the sample comments and fit comments. So it was like, gave me time to kind of really get my portfolio together, but also still working in it. And then after they were, done with me needing to do sample comments, I kind of slipped it in. And at that point I was like, I'm ready to do this. So I would say that probably was 6 to 8 months. I mean, I probably could have done it sooner than that. I just, imposter syndrome is a thing, and you're always going to be nervous. So sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and go for it.
Jade or Ellie, is there anything you want to add on that? It's okay if you don't. I just want to give you the
probably
option.
Probably a month or two. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Oh, I just said it's okay if you don't. I just want to make sure I give you guys the option.
Oh. Yeah. No, yeah, it took me I would say like a month or two to get confident with it enough where I can really like say goodbye to OptiText, because, the previous contractor was very nice enough for me to like have a little bit of time to learn and figure out what I was going to do to transition. So it took me about like a month or two to get really comfortable enough. And once I kind of got to the point where like, I'm like, okay, now I want to learn animation. Then I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't really need to do that right now. I can really just focus on pattern making with 3D protos. And eventually you just add on more and more and more. Just like anything, like even with Illustrator, like you only really need to know the things you need to know to get the job done. There's a ton of stuff in Illustrator I don't know how to do, still. And, I just learned the basics that I need to be able to do tech packs and things like that.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat said that they took your course. That's awesome.
Yay. And I think Jade did as well. And let's see. Yeah, I recognize names here. Sarah.
That's awesome.
Sure
yeah, just in case anyone who doesn't know, Ellie does have a CLO course.
Yes, it's a beginner's course on CLO 3D.
I think it's really good for really good for pattern maker. I think it's
Thank
quite
you.
specifically like if you want to learn the tools very quickly to know how to draft pattern. I think Ellie's course is one of the kind out there because I'm self-taught like hello like just through a lot of online YouTube videos and also a lot of online courses I bought. And for me, I think, yeah, it's about 6 to 8 months as well, because I kind of diving into all areas more than just pattern cutting. And I think, like, yeah, the question of, like, when you feel you're ready, I feel just like, yeah, you can try, like, do yourself like a test project. Like, if it's a pretend client, and then, like, what need to be delivered, and just set yourself up for that test, then you will know what you lack of and what you need to be better of. Or just do a trial project with someone, and I think both thing works, like to test like where you're at that moment.
Yeah, and I think being honest too about where you're at. Like, you could always say to a client too, like, I have just learned this software. I feel pretty good about it, but I would love to try it out for you. I'll do it for a discounted rate if you're open to it. And that way, like, you get to try. They already know up front that, like, things might go a little bit awry, but, you know, then everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of like really communicate like the need from the client and what their expectation out of the project to start with, because maybe what you know is not what they need. So you need to be clear on that. Like what you're learning is literally that will benefit their business, because the result, if it doesn't benefit them, that project gonna fail.
Ellie, really quick before I forget, there's somebody in the comments asked for a link to your course, if you wouldn't mind dropping that in there.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Sarah. Actually, might have already done that.
Perfect.
I can go ahead and share like a coupon code for all of you if you are interested in taking this course. And if you would like, I can definitely stay after to like answer questions about that. I don't want to pull too much from the current discussion, but yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
Okay. So do any of you have any advice for people who are just starting out and wanting to learn CLO or offer CLO?
I feel like learning CLO Jade's living proof that you can be self-taught. I felt like taking a course was really helpful for me, just to have someone to help me troubleshoot things, because you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes you might be pulling your hair out trying to figure out why you can't do the thing you're trying to do, and you don't know that a setting is off and you need to change that in order to make it work. So having a teacher you can ask questions or even give your file to. I did that a lot when I took the FIT courses. I was like, here's my file, please help me. And she explained what I was doing wrong and like how to fix it. And that was really, really helpful, because when it's a new software, there's just a lot to learn in it. There's a lot of tools, and having someone to ask questions to was just really helpful for me. So, yeah.
I think that's something that's super beautiful about having a freelance network too, is that, you know, when you're working at a corporate office, and you're learning a new program, there's usually somebody there, whether it's somebody that the company's hired or somebody that's teaching you, that you can ask questions. And when you're learning it on your own, you're very siloed. It can feel very lonely, and like you don't know who to ask. So everyone on the call, like, I highly recommend just, you know, reaching out to other people. And if you're kind and asking for help, a lot of times people will say yes, you know?
Yeah. Actually, Jade helped me with a project recently, and we got on a Zoom call and we worked through the thing together. And so, like, yeah, definitely this community that we're all a part of is really helpful. There's also, CLO has a Discord channel. If you can't find the answer, you can go onto the Discord channel and ask your question.
That's awesome. Can one of you share that information? You don't have to right now either. If you want to wait till afterwards so that we're not distracted, that's fine. Okay. But either in the chat, or I'll send a recap email after the call, and you can just send it on that. All right. Would you say that CLO is more difficult to learn than Illustrator?
I would say yes, but I'm actually literally jumping from just knowing Illustrator, and then I start learning CLO. I think it's more difficult, but it's not unmanageable. If you basically just focus on the basic first, so you don't get overwhelmed. So I guess even relate back to the last question, like if there's any advice, from my own learning experience, I would suggest someone starting out, maybe kind of like try to understand the general workflow first. Like for example, from pattern to production and then to render, right? Just understand the whole workflow first, and then kind of define and decide which area you want to focus in as part of your service. And then just diving on that part first only. You don't need to know everything to kind of start able to kind of like provide it as a service. So I think that's quite important, because I felt it took me longer because I want to know every single part. But like in hindsight, I could have just focused on one part first, and I'm ready to already, have that benefit what I already provide as a freelance, rather than like, I know everything and then like later on, it just take longer to learn that way, I feel. So if you can just focus on one area, that kind of like go hand in hand with what you already provide, like as a freelancer, I think that maybe would be more beneficial, and then shorten your learning curve as well, I think.
Yeah, I love that Jacqueline just said in the chat, I think we have to remember that none of us know everything about Illustrator, but we still work successfully in it. And
Exactly.
That is so true. And I think that that's a really great comment. Thank you for saying that, Jacqueline.
Mm.
All right. How long did it take you to feel like you really had a hang of the program? I feel like we kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about like how long it took you guys to learn and start offering it to clients. But I would say like let's give a reference of like, how many days or weeks did it take you to start feeling like you knew what you were at least looking for?
So I took the courses, so like I was pretty much guided through it, learning like the basics. And I would say after the first course, like the beginner course, I really did kind of have an understanding of like at least how it worked. I don't know that I necessarily knew, like, I didn't know how to use it for what I'm using it for now, like we fit sessions and stuff and pattern corrections. But I was definitely comfortable working in there, and like I could almost anticipate like the tools we were going to use, to do the project that we were doing that next week. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it's nice for people just to hear everyone's different experiences. Jade, Ellie?
I think I already mentioned before, it took me like a couple months to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I want to add to this actually, because originally when I downloaded the like free trial, I didn't do anything in there. I opened the software and I was like, I felt really awkward in it because I'm so used to OptiText, and I was like, I don't know where any of the tools are. I can't even zoom in. Like, it's clunky. Like, I could zoom in, but it felt weird because it was different, and I didn't even use it. Like, it just like sat there, and the trial ended, and I went back to it afterwards. So I want to throw that in there because like it might seem like kind of weird at first when you're learning something new. You might be lost or whatever. It feels like you're trying to like learn to ride a bike all over again. But it helps to like watch tutorials and get your bearings so that you're not like you feel like you're in the dark totally. But yeah, I had that moment.
Yeah, I remember when I was learning and I like was learning the new keyboard shortcuts, and I would go back and forth from CLO to Illustrator, and I would like the the shortcuts were really screwing me up, and I'd push the wrong button all the time, and it was constantly just like undo, undo, undo.
Well, I make a huge like yeah. Basically, the space bar is for simulation in Close 3D, and I didn't realize I constantly having the stimulation button on, and I couldn't figure out why my laptop just keep making the fanning sound, and it's getting so hot. And then only after I realized, oh, because I keep pressing the space bar, which I'm so used to using in Illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a little bit embarrassing, but that's what happened when you didn't know what you're doing in that program.
Yeah, so I was learning it as a designer, so I was very focused on the rendering, and I'm, basically the pattern portion was just enough knowledge to get the silhouette that I was looking for. And every time I hit that simulate button, and it like everything just dropped, and I was just like, oh god, now I have to start over again.
Yeah, I think it's getting used to the 3D window. That's the big thing. And then all the navigation button for the 3D window. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel that's the thing most alien to us, probably, like to start with. Because none of us maybe come from gaming background or even like know how to see things in the 3D space. So that takes some time to get used to it.
For sure. Do you guys have any other tips or tricks for how people can learn CLO? Like I know, Jenny, you said you took an actual course, and Ellie, you kind of taught yourself, and Jade took Ellie's course. So is there other courses, other online communities, anything else that you guys would recommend to share with people who are trying to learn?
Yeah, the CLO.Connect store. A lot of people who are subscribing to CLO don't even know this exists. And I'm not talking about CLO.Set where you can upload and see your tech packs and all that. That's great too. I'm talking about CLO.Connect where you can download practice files or purchase files or sell your own stuff as well. So make sure you check that out. I'll put a link in there for you guys.
Awesome.
As a self-taught person, I will highly recommend their YouTube channel. That kind of goes through the playlist rather than all the videos because it's all over the place, like the sequence of it. So if you go to playlist and then just start from the beginners one, and then it's quite a structured course there already. And then kind of go into each topic, like from the beginning, interface, and then like 2D pattern, and then like, just the detail for the garment, and then maybe part of the rendering presentation. So it's kind of sequence like that. So I think that one is quite good to get a general idea and then figure out which area you want to specialize in. Then you can kind of find more like video to kind of like go in deeper to understand those tools and how to kind of benefit your own workflow, basically.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to move on to another topic of questions just because I don't want to run out of time to kind of hit everything, and we'll come back to learning CLO later if we have time. So let's talk about offering CLO as a service and pricing. So all of you are pattern makers or tech designers. So this question was, I'm curious to hear about opinions on offering CLO as a service solely for 3D rendering for merchandising or presentation purposes. Do you think it's saleable as a service to use that in that way versus as fit sessions, adjusting patterns, those things?
So I think that it's probably more marketable for fit sessions and pattern work, but I did recently have a client ask me to create turntables for their sales meetings. They were doing like a virtual sales meeting and they wanted me to mock up some of their designs in all the colorways and do turntables so they could put that into their presentation. So I do think that there is a market for it. I don't know. The project ended up getting scrapped, so I don't know how in demand that is. I think if you're in Fast and you're doing customer research, that's something I would ask about in your customer research.
We're going to have people here that don't know what Fast is, so I'm just going to explain that really quick.
Okay.
A lot of us are part of Heidi Wingberg's freelance fashion course called Fast. And that's how a lot of us know each other. So if we're saying that or talking about Heidi or talking about courses or the community, that is what we're talking about. And if you want more information on that, feel free to reach out to me and I can help share that. Does anybody else have any thoughts on like offering the 3D rendering as a service?
Yeah, to add on to that, I think like maybe it might be more of an interest for a lot of startups rather than established brand, because for established brand, they probably have a different type of marketing strategy already. So that type of rendering is not fit for their brand identity or image. But for a lot of startup, to save them for the initial investment, to the sample, to even going to production, I think like for them it's more desirable to have render as their marketing, kind of to have a pre-order like system, or just kind of like to test out the market water first. So I think if you want to target in that, just doing 3D and rendering, maybe kind of explore options within with the startup companies rather than already established like brands.
That's really good advice.
I have something to add on. So I was working with a client that they only needed like 3D renders for their like customer facing images. So I do have an instance where I worked in that capacity. They provided patterns for me. I sewed it up and rendered it, applied different textures, colors, all that stuff. I was able to take snapshots with it, inside and out. Clo 3D is awesome because, you can adjust your lighting and customize your lighting, move your lights as needed. I couldn't do that in OptiText before. And I actually had to reach out to OptiText to ask them if they would add that in. And eventually they did add it in, but it was above the tier that I was subscribed to, or that we were subscribed to. So I was a little bit frustrated with that software at the time. But yeah, OptiText or Clo lets you do that in the basic plan. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was when it comes to doing the 3D prototypes, renderings, like usually what they're most used for is within the company. So like not so much customer facing. Yes, it can be done with the photorealistic renders, but usually it's done to present concepts, to the different people that are working in that brand. So maybe the print designer needs to see their print on a different silhouette or in a different color. I've worked in that capacity too, where they just send me a ton of print files and I'm just putting them into the CAD, pattern. And many times I was just provided the CAD file. So you don't always need to know pattern making, to use the software. You just need to know how to like sew it up and work in 3D and apply the textures. So not every single job is the same. So just wanted to add that.
There's a question in the chat about how long it takes to go from a flat AI sketch to a 3D walking model or avatar. I'm going to let you guys comment on that, but I do just want to say that's just like most things, it depends on the complexity of the garment. So, a simple t-shirt, let's say, how long would it take you to go from nothing to an avatar with a t-shirt on?
Also, I think it's how realistic you want a 3D render to look like as well, because it can take time to actually make the realistic side of like the fabric, and also like just like adjusting lighting to kind of make a fabric look even more real. Yeah, it's just like those are extra things on top of like technical side of things. So
many hours, and not to mention rendering time. And if you're editing that video afterwards, I mean, that could take 10 or 12 hours, depending on, like we said, complexity and all that. So yeah, it takes a lot of time to do like animated renders. Because you're literally rendering image by image in high quality, and then like the program stitches that together to make a video.
So I will always say like focus on what your end purpose is first before you kind of try to deliver something. Yeah, because you can go very basic, but you can go very, very like detailed into the every, detail of things like for a 3D asset.
Okay, let's talk about how you present like your portfolio or show that you offer CLO. Jenny, I'm remembering how you said that you kind of put together a presentation to show your client to kind of introduce them to it, but do you put it in your portfolio? Do any of you like advertise that you do this as a service?
I have a website that I have like, I have a friend who is a designer, and she allowed me to take one of her patterns from her show, one of her recent shows, and I digitized her pattern and sewed it up and did like a whole like made it fit a different sized model than who she made it for. So I did a lot of renders, and I put that all on my website, showing and explaining like what I did to the pattern to kind of solve some of the fit issues that I saw. And then I also took one of the designs from the FIT course, modified it in CLO so that wasn't exactly the same, and then did a tech pack for it so that I could show, fit comments too. And I just put that all up on my website, and that's how I market it. For the presentation that I gave to my client, though, I just put together like a presentation that was specific to the pattern that they gave me to work with, and showed them like kind of the same thing, like what I did to the pattern, the before and after pictures, and then just kind of showed them like what other things you can do while in CLO with that pattern.
For me, my portfolio is still in a work in progress stage. Yeah, because for years I don't have a portfolio. My work is always like word of mouth or just from connections. But I really need to kind of update a 3D portfolio as well, because that's what I'm kind of fully invested in right now. And I would suggest, because myself considering to showcase like a 3D portfolio, definitely maybe the use of turntable or even videos, because those are the only way you can really show they are 3D images and 3D garments. Because I think sometimes we forget, we just kind of do a render, and that is still a 2D image of a garment. Or and I feel it's quite important to show just the turntable or even like a video that would totally show the different dimension of the garment that you build in CLO, and that's the huge difference from everything else that you will see like as a 2D. And I think ideally it would be nice to have some links that people can go into somewhere that's like a 3D space. They can navigate and see that 3D garment. These are the things that I'm thinking to use for my portfolio. So I'm just sharing my thought. I haven't built one yet, so.
Definitely, yeah. I have a website, but mostly I like to use Behance. I don't know if some people think it's unprofessional or not, but I like it. I like the customizability. It's easy. It's easy to share. And it just showcase like the renders, if I did any marketing for, my own brand, like I market on Instagram. Sometimes I make reels. So I'll just put that in there in the portfolio and show like the 2D space with the 3D space so that they can see, yes, this is something that I created, any other behind the scenes, things like that. I'll just pop it in there. So, I can share the link to that if anybody wants to see what it looks like. Like Jade said, same thing. It's always a work in progress. So, yeah.
I was pulling up some stuff while you guys were talking, so sorry if anyone was noticing me looking over this way. I'm going to try and share my screen and just share with you guys some stuff that I did as far as like 3D rendering just for like concept purposes, and for anyone who's like not really used CLO to do like concept. So you can kind of see like this is all costumes, so that's why they're kind of weird. But you can see how like this is really more about the visual of the